Israel and Hamas may be closer to a ceasefire hostage deal than ever before, despite Hamas still making some shocking demands of Israel. The U.S. administration is pressuring Israel to approve military aid to the Palestinian Authority. And a crazy report just came out detailing Hamas's deliberate lies about the civilian death toll in Gaza. We have a lot to get into today, so stay tuned. I'm Josiah Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Check out this video from just this morning. An Israeli Air Force pilot drew a hostage ribbon in the skies of Israel with his plane's trail, showing solidarity with over 100 hostages who are still being held in Gaza. Now, this all happened while a Hamas official just told a Saudi news outlet that they are closer than ever to reaching a ceasefire deal with Israel. He said, quote, "We are closer than ever to reaching a prisoner exchange deal in a ceasefire, provided that Netanyahu does not obstruct the agreement," end quote. Now, by the way, the terminology, prisoner exchange he's using here is very intentional here on the part of Hamas. Instead of saying hostage release deal, which is what it is, they say prisoner swap to convey the idea that the terrorists who are to be released in exchange for the hostages are equal to the Israeli hostages who were brutally kidnapped on October 7th, and saying both these terrorists and the hostages are just prisoners of war of each side of this conflict. Now, why is it that Israel and Hamas could be closer to a hostage deal than ever before? Another Arab media outlet reported that although negotiations were progressing slowly, there was unprecedented willingness on both sides. Now, there are still some challenges to this deal. Channel 13 News here in Israel reported that Hamas is insisting on releasing a smaller number of hostages than Israel demands. They also reported that Israel is not willing to compromise on this, which is incredible. Very good. Israel should not compromise on this stipulation for the deal. Although the exact number of hostages that Israel is demanding from Hamas for a ceasefire terrorist release agreement has not been officially confirmed. A report from Jewish Breaking News said that sources familiar with the current negotiations indicate that a proposed agreement framework would establish a 6 to 8 week ceasefire, potentially beginning with a 2-week pause that could be extended for an additional month. Hamas would release at least 20 Israeli hostages, including 4 or 5 dual citizens, with priorities given to American nationals. Israel would also gradually increase humanitarian aid into Gaza to at least 400 trucks, incorporating fuel supplies for essential services such as hospitals, bakeries, and water facilities. Now, the Hamas official also said that Netanyahu and Israel were to blame for the points of contention in these negotiations for a ceasefire deal. Now, this could actually be true because some of Hamas's demands are so outrageous that Israel cannot, should not, and hopefully will not agree to them. One of these demands is the release of Marwan Barghouti, who is an arch terrorist that is serving 5 life sentences plus 40 years in Israeli prisons for his terror activities against Israel. Did y'all catch that? He's serving 5 life sentences plus 40 years for murdering civilians. Hamas is insisting on Barghouti's release, in addition to at least another 100 terrorists in Israeli prisons, presumably so that Barghouti could assume the leadership role of Hamas. Now, even if Barghouti was left out of the equation in this ceasefire deal, 100 Palestinian terrorists, at least 100 Palestinian terrorists, and a ceasefire from Israel for 20 or less Israeli hostages being released from Hamas is an absolute crazy, one-sided deal. Hamas's officials are calling on Donald Trump to pressure Israel to complete the negotiation process very soon, which by all indications, Trump is very willing to complete a ceasefire deal in the very near future. Now, Israel just closed its embassy in Ireland. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar announced yesterday that Israel will be closing its embassy in the country of Ireland. He's had this to say in a post on X, quote, "Today, I've instructed the closure of Israel's embassy in Ireland. The actions, double standards, and anti-Semitic rhetoric of the Irish government against Israel are rooted in efforts to delegitimize and demonize the Jewish state." Now, this comes in a direct response to Ireland's support of South Africa's legal actions accusing Israel of genocide in the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, which is maybe one of the few organizations even more corrupt than the United Nations. Also, among the list of reasons given for the closure of the Israel's embassy in Ireland were the government's recognition of a Palestinian state during attacks on Israel, promoting anti-Israel measures within the EU, and failing to effectively combat the surge of anti-Semitism in Ireland. Now, this closure will have big impacts on pretty much nothing, as relations between Ireland and Israel have long been strained, and it's only been a matter of time before this step has happened. In fact, the Israeli ambassador to Ireland, Dana Ehrlicht, had already been recalled back in May amidst calls for her expulsion and personal threats against her. Now, for what it's worth, Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris described Israel's decision as deeply regrettable, saying Ireland is pro-peace, pro-human rights, and pro-international law. And here I was thinking that Ireland didn't have any snakes. Also, in his statements, Gideon Sa'ar said that Israel will also be pursuing relations with countries interested in strengthening their ties with Israel, who is now going to have an embassy, have an Israeli embassy in their country. Drumroll, please. Moldova. Israel just announced they're opening a new embassy in the country of Moldova, which has been strengthening its ties with Israel recently. The festival of Hanukkah is coming up, and it reminds us that there is hope even in the darkest moments. Holocaust survivors, many of them now in their 90s, are facing another winter with empty pantries and little left to keep them warm. Families living in poverty, including over 1 million children, are going to bed hungry every night. Their parents overwhelmed by the rising cost due to the war. At the same time, brave IDF soldiers and reservists continue to defend Israel's borders, with many of them returning home with life-changing injuries and trauma. These men and women who risk everything to protect the land of Israel need your support. In 2024 alone, thanks to the generosity of people like you, Me'ir Panim delivered over 2.6 million meals to those in need. More than 500,000 care packages were sent to IDF soldiers and displaced families, and over 2,200 Holocaust survivors received daily hot meals and emotional support. This Hanukkah, Me'ir Panim is doing more than ever. You can help them deliver thousands of Hanukkah packages filled with treats, hot meals, and menorahs to Holocaust survivors, displaced families, IDF soldiers, and their families. You can help provide thousands of coats, heaters, scarves, and gloves to those who can't afford them, and so much more. Now is the time to act. Your kindness rekindles hope and reminds Israel they are never alone. Just click the link in the description below to make your light shine this Hanukkah and help the people of Israel. A report just came out from Axios that the U.S. is privately urging Israel to approve a bunch of military aid to the Palestinian Authority. So apparently the PA just made a counterterrorism raid in Jenin, something they almost never take part in or do. If they're not directly involved in terrorism, they usually at least encourage it and pay the salaries of thousands of terrorists. Now, it seems like the PA is just getting worried about losing their grip of power in Samaria, because Hamas and the PIJ seized a PA vehicle on December 5th, and they're probably scared that Hamas or the PIJ could follow the example of the Syrian rebels and lead a coup to oust the Palestinian Authority. So they made a counterterrorism raid, and I think so far they've got 2 terrorists, including a leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the PIJ. So now the Biden administration is using this as an excuse to pressure Israel to approve military aid to the PA, as if to say, look, they did something good, send them weapons. One official in Ramallah told Axios that this counterterrorism raid is a make or break moment for the Palestinian Authority. Either you act like a state you say you are, or you go back to being a militant organization. So the PA briefed the Biden administration before the raid. U.S. Security Coordinator General Mike Fenzel even met with the Palestinian Authority police before the raid. They gave Fenzel a list of equipment they need, including ammunition, helmets, bulletproof vests, radios, night vision equipment, bomb disposal suits, and armored vehicles. So over the weekend, I came across this new report published by Andrew Fox over at the Henry Jackson Society. The report is titled Questionable Counting, Analyzing the Death Toll from the Hamas-run Ministry of Health in Gaza. And we'll link it down below. You should definitely check it out. It's an extremely well-researched and detailed report. But in this report, the author clearly demonstrates the inaccuracy and unreliability of death tolls from Gaza. The report meticulously analyzed reports of Gaza war fatalities from February of 2024 through May of 2024, one of the times when the most fatalities were reported throughout the Gaza war. Now, they examined 1,378 articles from major English language newspapers and media outlets, specifically the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, CNN, the BBC, Reuters, the Associated Press, and the Australian ABC. Now, the report cited that over that 4-month period, 84% of those publications, of the 1,300 publications, failed to make the critical distinction in total numbers between combatant deaths and civilian deaths. Only 5% of surveyed media organizations cited numbers released by the Israeli authorities, while 98% cited fatality figures provided by the Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health. They went on to state that serious errors have been discovered on the ministry's list of fatalities. These errors include a 22-year-old registered as a 4-year-old, a 31-year-old registered as a 1-year-old, and several men with male first names were registered as female deaths, artificially increasing the numbers of women and children reported killed. The list also included people who died before the war and people who died from attacks by Hamas rather than the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. They likely included around 5,000 natural deaths per year, including cancer patients who were listed by the ministry for hospital treatment after they had already appeared on the fatality list. Now, this is just crazy. Hamas also claimed hundreds of fatalities from attacks which turned out to be misfired rocket launches by Gaza factions. Now, this study is making clear something that many of us knew all along, but that the media lied about again and again. The civilian death toll in Gaza is not what the media has reported it to be, and Hamas has been lying and lying again. Now, obviously, every innocent civilian death is a tragedy and should not be taken lightly. But something you should never do is trust a terrorist organization's civilian death toll, or actually anything that a terrorist organization says for that matter. Joel chapter 3, verse 16 through 18 says, "The Lord will also roar from Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. The heavens and earth will shake, but the Lord will be a shelter for his people and the strength of the children of Israel. So you shall know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Mount Zion, my holy mountain. Then Jerusalem shall be holy, and no aliens shall ever pass through her again." Guys, don't forget to go support Me'ir Panim and help them feed the poor in Israel. Also, feel free to click the link in the description below to check out our end of the year fundraising campaign and get some exclusive Israel Guys merch as our gift to you. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what is happening in Israel. We'll be back soon here at the Israel Guys with more content from Israel.